This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Purdy Insurance. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour being brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. They made some great sales at the end of February. Great deals and made great sales. Great finish of the month of February from Sunbury Motors. Great pre-owned inventory with the all-important Sunbury Motors guarantee. They go over every vehicle. Terrific service department. Quick lane inspections, routine, difficult to handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. The great Neal Coolong joins us. Welcome, sir.
As always, the pleasure is all mine to be here. Thank you for having me.
We always have the post-mortem on the combine, the risers, the fallers. So, Neal, who became a little more intriguing to you and who became less intriguing to you?
That's an interesting question. I don't think anybody became less intriguing. I'm not even sure more is that. I mean, you look at something like Sonny Styles. I think that's a story at least, just because it's incredible what he did at the size that he's at. Now, I wouldn't have bet he would have put those numbers up, but I'm not hugely surprised by it. I mean, it's obvious the guy is an incredible athlete, and that's the core to his game right now. I don't know if he is, in contention for the best defensive player, certainly not the best overall player in this draft, but athletes like that are extremely rare, and that type of thing I think is interesting. Where that puts him, I don't know if it really changes. I mean, we'll see. I think 2 through 9, with the exception that everybody is putting Jeremiah Love to New Orleans at 8. I think it's pretty up in the air. I mean, he could go anywhere. He's going to fit in just about any defensive scheme you could imagine, and it comes down to need at that point. So I don't know if the combine, even the Herculean performance he just put up, it makes him more valuable in the eyes of anybody who's making this decision. But it's certainly an interesting story, and it's certainly going to be great for whatever fan base gets him. Certainly those covering the team get a lot of miles out of those kinds of stories. Believe me, it's fun in that sense. Actual football, I don't know if the combine really is actual football anyway. So it's a dog and pony show. We all kind of know that, but you get together. You're talking with players. I think the stories that come out of the combine are best told in the context of the draft, like during the draft. You'll hear about those things during the draft or after a player is drafted. What they talked about, what was said. You put together the whole picture probably by that point. I'd call it the whole thing just kind of incomplete right now. We don't know enough about it to say, in my estimation, if anybody rose or fell just because, I'm not drafting for the entire league. I'm not in charge of the team. I don't know if I don't think they have stock necessarily. I think teams want certain players for certain things, and that's who they're targeting at this point.
I think the other element, too, is, and I'll use the exact quote I gave you last week, Neal, but it's worth repeating. The number of players that when pro day is over, because Penn State still has this pro day on the 18th, when pro day is over, to a man, players said to me, this is great, now I can go back to practicing football. Because all their training is to train for this day or the 2 days, and it's not football. There's mountains of video on every one of these guys. I don't care what Carnell Tate ran. I've got video that tells me the dude's good.
Yeah, I think Cade is a good example of it. Everybody just melting down after his numbers were posted. If you saw it, he stumbled at the start. It's pretty obvious why he tested where he did. But to your point, you're right. There's no way I'm going to believe that guy's like a 4.5, 4.6 kind of 40 guy. He's going to be in the mid 4.4s. You can see that with the way he plays. You watch enough of these guys and know what long speed looks like. You can tell that he's got it. It's not a major concern. Now, he's not going to be elite in that regard, but he's certainly fast enough to legitimize what's pretty obviously a top 10 talent. I mean, he's not getting out of the top 10 of round one, unless I guess maybe he ran a 4.7, but that wasn't going to happen. You watch him on film, it's pretty clear that he has that kind of speed. So in my mind, you make an excellent point. It doesn't. This part of it is not about their football acumen, and it's not meant to be either. They're looking at the sum of the parts and how they equal to the sum of the whole that they see on tape. And there are a lot of guys, and the one that I would bring up probably the most readily is because I was saying this back in November. Once Drew Allar shows up at the combine, healthy from a clean break, he's going to throw. All of a sudden, people are going to start talking about him again because they're going to forget that he's 6'5" with a big arm. Not a guy that you're waiting until the third round to draft. He's going to go a lot higher than people think that he will. And the things that he's criticized for most often are things that it's not that they're not football related, but they're far too hyper specific to say an NFL team in which their job livelihood, their job security depends entirely on finding a quarterback that will continue to get better and win games more or less on his own. They're going to take shots at guys that have the tools that he has. I really don't care that the overall result of his career or how last year ended and how it didn't answer questions. They'll give him the opportunity to answer questions. Now, he's not going to be a top 5 pick, but would not be at all surprised if people are talking about him on the back end of the first round, simply because guys that size that have that kind of arm, that have experience, they tend to get drafted pretty high. It's not an overdraft. It's not a reach. If you don't have that position, you have to find somebody to fill that position. And you can't keep doing it with Aaron Rodgers every year, for example. It doesn't work out too well for you. You tend to get kind of stagnated where you are. You've got to be improving. And I think the Combine can, light people up to what teams already kind of know. They really wanted a medical check on Allar. That pro day is going to be massive. You're going to have most teams, certainly anyway, at it anyway, but the ones in particular that need a quarterback are going to be there with notepads in their hands and cameras on their arms, simply because you've got to find out whether or not this is the type of guy that you want to invest a premium pick into. And the Combine kind of starts that process, in my opinion. And a guy like Allar, again, you're going to hear his name talked about higher and higher as these weeks go on, leading into that pro day for that very reason. They need to find out whether or not this is a guy they want to invest in. And I'd bet money now somebody's going to in the top 40.
Well, and here's the next part. You and I both know the throwing element of it works in the quarterback's favor at a combine or at a pro day because they give you a script of plays. Especially at a pro day, you have your own receivers, the guys that you're used to. And guess what? There's nobody rushing you.
Yeah, it's kind of a big part of it, right? I mean, you're not even playing half the game. You're playing about 10% of the game. Yeah. Most of it is rush. Now, you want to look at the mechanics. So you have to kind of set up the perfect situation. This is what he can do. And a lot of it really is, if he doesn't do it well with none of these other elements installed, how is he going to do it when the bullets are flying around him? I say that based on one of our favorite players that we watched last year, Jackson Dart. I watched Jackson Dart at his pro day, and in my estimation, and no one's paying me to make these decisions on a team, I came away from that really surprised at how fundamentally poor he was. Yeah. I thought he would have been a lot better, considering it's the only thing he's done theoretically for the last 7 weeks. Right. You know, it's you finish up whatever. You get into the play, you probably should be able to recite your lines, right? I mean, that's a basic understanding, a basic expectation. Dart failed to do that. And Dart is a player already who was under the gun largely because all he did was play shotgun.
Right.
So his footwork, you expect it to not be fully developed. He needed to be able to show he could play under center. In his pro day, I saw that he didn't. And I saw an NFL quarterback that they kept as far away from actual pro situations as you could possibly imagine. And everyone talks about, he had a great rookie year doing this and that. Find me all 12 of his passes this season and look at him. He's not ready. He probably shouldn't have been playing. If things worked better in New York, and this was in many ways a last-ditch effort, I think, for Brian Daboll to hang on to his job, which he didn't keep past, week 5. They put Dart out there for the rest of the year. Toward the end of the season, playing a Vikings team that was eliminated from the playoffs, I don't think he threw the ball in the first half. It was like watching Tim Tebow in college. I mean, it's obvious he's not developed and he's not ready. So at the pro day, if you're watching a player that in ideal situations, your own guys, you could have dress rehearsals for exactly what's going to happen at the pro day for 2 weeks leading into it. You would know exactly what you were supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it. And he still looked off. He didn't look balanced at all. Right. I don't know how much work he put into it, but the reality is, to me, I can't draft this guy in the first round, maybe not the second round, because it's going to take 2+ years if he's ever going to get his footwork down for him to do that. I can't put him on the field. If I do, I have to have extreme plans simply because he's out there. And you saw a Giants team that couldn't do anything. And a large part of it was because they had the most limited quarterback in the NFL playing a lot of snaps for him. Now, I understand that, nobody – Russell Wilson really seems to alienate everybody he plays with. I'm not really sure why or how that is, but they did not want to put Wilson back out there even when he was healthy. They wanted to go with Dart. He's got a long way to go, and I hope he's doing that 10, 12 hours a day for his entire offseason. If he wants to make something out of himself, that's what he's going to have to do. And you see that in the pro day is my point. I think in those conditions, you're really looking more to validate that he is where he should be as a young player. You don't expect perfection. In my opinion, though, he was way off where a normal first-round prospect would be at that point in the draft process.
And then there's what's going to happen with the Steelers. What does free agency, which is the next important step, what are some areas in free agency they need to look at? Because they're not going to get a quarterback in free agency. That's not going to happen, right? So how do you see how this plays out with them as to what their needs are, of which there are many?
I think we'll probably hear maybe before our next segment that Aaron Rodgers will be back. That will be their plan, largely because I don't think they have a better overall option. Now, for me, I really like a lot of what Malik Willis has. I'm into traits. I think that's important. You need to be able to do exceptional things if you're going to be an exceptional player. Malik Willis has the ability to do a lot of those things, still needs a lot of work. But to me, that's a gamble you take because you keep kicking the can down the road and your seasons are identical every year. And now you parted ways with the best one-score coach in NFL history. And you're putting in a guy that's not that great at it. And he played with a legend under center the same way that Tomlin did, but you're not getting that this season. What's Mike McCarthy without that high level of quarterback under center? We've seen it. It's not very good. I don't know what they're going to do with a guy like Rodgers this season. And for me, if you take the shot with Willis, I understand you might burn a few dollars, but you could probably structure a deal to get out of it relatively pain-free after 2 years if it isn't working out. If it does work out, kind of like Sam Darnold in Seattle last year, you're going to have a high-level quarterback at a less-than-market rate. That's the risk that you're taking. That's the reward that you might get. It's tough. I'm not at all suggesting that's what's going to happen, but the upside is there. You see it in Willis's game. That said, Rodgers is the safe option. I don't think depends really dollars-wise. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if Minnesota gets into that market. Maybe it drives up his price a little bit, but I don't think you're really reasonably going to have to pay Aaron Rodgers more than $15 million a year. That's probably about half of what Willis would get, and it would be a one-year deal for Rodgers. That said, the draft it's probably not going to net you the quarterback that you'd want either. So as far as the rest of the team goes now, you have to fill in outside of that. It sounds, by all reports, and this is kind of a surprise, because the Steelers, couched this in every opportunity they were speaking publicly. Broderick Jones, inside reports suggest had kind of a significant surgery, and his availability for the entire season is kind of up in the air right now. That's a problem, not in the sense that Dylan Cook, his replacement, when he got hurt in what was that, week 13, I think, week 14, Dylan Cook played very well in that spot, but tackle is a position you need depth. You need really three starters. And we saw that last year when Jones got hurt. Dylan Cook, an undrafted free agent, didn't even play offensive tackle in college, went to a smaller school, had to fight his way up. To have the success that he's having, not exactly a process you can plan on and expect every year for every guy that you bring in. You're going to need to bring in a veteran. So in my mind, they're going to have to spend $3-4 million on a swing tackle who can come in and play. Calvin Anderson is a guy that has served that, I think, for the Steelers the last couple of years. His time might be up. They might want to go with a veteran, perhaps a little bit better of an injury history right now. Spencer Anderson looks to be the guy to replace Isaac Seumalo at left guard. Maybe they want some interior line depth, kind of a multi-position guy. But I would expect offensive tackle to be a position they absolutely have to look at. And for me, and this is the easiest thing in the world to say, which is why I'm saying it second, they need an NFL-level wide receiver who can do more than one thing, who is not brought in to play special teams, who will be able to reliably run 15 to 18 routes a game, get 5 to 6 targets, make 3 to 4 catches, get a few yards after the catch, be a reliable target on the field. They need a second guy that can do that. That is not Calvin Austin. That is not Roman Wilson. That is not Adam Thielen or Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Mm-hmm. They need to find an actual player that can come in and try to take some heat off of DK Metcalf. If they're not going to use the tight end, which Pat Freiermuth, I should say, the tight end that you're not paying, then they need to find a reliable second target to go along with DK Metcalf and try to establish something of a passing game. And in my mind, that's what free agency should be. You need a swing tackle and you need a veteran receiver. Even if the receiver is in the $10 to $12 million range, not somebody like Allen Robinson who's going to come in and get 15 targets all season. I mean, a guy that can be a reliable target for you game in and game out. They have to find that.
The NFLPA survey about franchises, the Dolphins were 1, the Steelers were 32. But it goes all over the place. The Steelers' training staff got an A. The facility got an F. Anything we should take from this?
Well, I would say the Steelers were last in playoff point differential, too. I mean, which one are we more upset with?
No.
It's not ideal, but at the same time, you absolutely see some things in there that are more like you put you put a box out for anonymous comments on your service at McDonald's, you're going to get some pretty nasty comments.
Yes,
There's
you will.
no accountability for it. And I don't want to say the owners are fine, the players are just complaining. That isn't fair either. I am sure the reasonable answer is somewhere in the middle. But you have a survey going out where they're enabled to give F minuses. I'm not believing it. Okay, that's as petty as it gets. I mean, come on, I can't go lower than F minus. That's why I'm not. I did stuff like that on the teacher evaluations in high school. This isn't. I can't take this seriously, and you shouldn't even be allowing it for that reason. Like you ruin all your credibility. Now all this is just something for people to talk about on the radio, people to write about on the internet, and we're gonna have a lot of fun with it. Don't get me wrong, but you can't really take it seriously, and that's why they're legitimately fighting over this, whether or not this can be allowed or what outlet they have to use. At the end of the day, we know, those who are fully aware of this, know there is collective bargaining within the NFL, and there is revenue sharing among owners. That said, there are owners who are worth an insane amount of money more than other owners are.
Yes.
Other owners, like the Rooneys and the list of partners that they have, they do not have the liquid capital that Stan Kroenke does. Stan Kroenke's worth $15 billion or something like that. He has a real estate empire that would put the Romans to shame. The amount of money that he is able to pump into the team is just vastly higher than what the Steelers can. He also has a team that's in, for them, still relatively a new city. It's been 10 years or so. They have a brand new stadium, brand new practice facility that they are sharing with another team. So there's less money that they're putting into it for probably a better overall product. The Southside facility has been the thing for the Steelers for a long time now. At least I'm pretty sure 20 years or so. Maybe not as old as Heinz Field is, but it's been there for a while. They share the facility with Pitt. It's wedged in right down by the river, right across the hot metal bridge, which is literally what the thing is. It's hard to get in and out of. It's real congested oftentimes. I can see why players get annoyed. I can see it's not an easy, simple drive from there to the stadium, for example. Little things like that. They probably could do better. They'd probably be able to get something better somewhere else. But when your coaching grade is an A, when other parts of that it seemed to be more important overall, you can understand, all right, you might not have the best facility. For example, the facility is an F- and the weight room's a B. I mean, come on. What are you doing in the facility then? You're upset at the amount of stalls that are in the bathroom? All right. They don't care. Think of it this way. They got rid of the $16 million coach, hired a $12 million coach. They put that money into more coaches because they've never had them. They ignored the bathroom stalls. Do you really think any of that is not happening if they looked at the survey and said, well, we better not hire another assistant coach. We got to put in 5 more stalls in the locker room. I don't know how much it really matters is my point. It just seems it seems petty at worst and a joke at best. I don't there's not really a whole lot of stock to give it.
Let me put it this way. The McDonald's survey, Mayor McCheese is calling a cabinet meeting. All right. Neal, as always, my friend, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Half hour brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Multiple insurance needs. Let's face it, do we really have... There may be somebody out there that has an insurance need, but I know for me, I have homeowners insurance, I have auto insurance, I've got life insurance, health insurance, Medicare. And you may have specialty ones as well. Maybe you have a boat, maybe an RV, something. I mean, you want to insure, make sure you have it. Well, that's Purdy Insurance. They'll organize all of it, make sure you're fully insured, do everything they can to save you money, and they'll update the policies for you. I mean, they'll give you a call and say, hey, look, we just did a review on your policy. We think we can save you money here. Or, you know what, the coverage is changing on this. You're going to need to maybe make an adjustment. Those are the kind of people I want. That way, I just feel like everything's being taken care of by pros. It's Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. All right, final half hour today. Our thanks to Matt Catrillo and Neal Coolong for joining us on today's show. Appreciate it very much. Of course, we talked about Pro Day. Pro Day is coming up for Penn State 2 weeks from tomorrow. It'll be the 18th of March. and then spring practice will begin for the 2026 football team on March 24th. And we'll give you as much coverage as we possibly can of everything. We're just at that waiting period time right now where I'm just anxious to see this team get on the field and watch how all the parts come together with this coaching staff. They're going through what is, simply put, the honeymoon phase right now. You haven't played a game, which means you haven't lost a game, which means you haven't had somebody in the parking lot complaining about your scheme, which means they haven't complained about your coaching ability or anything like that. None of that has happened to this point. And just based on his track record, it is, for me, I think it's a tremendous hire. I can't wait to see the parts come together on this team. And, of course, you'll have enough people saying, oh, the schedule. The schedule. You know what? It's true. You don't have Indiana, you don't have Ohio State, and you don't have Oregon on there. Now, but we've known this. Either you forget about what's going on. They put out a 5-year. I can tell you they're playing next year, the year after. The whole thing went through. It was a 5-year span, went through 2028. This is year 3 of it. They already gave us who all the opponents are. The only part we don't know is the order with which they play the games. And you don't know how good Washington's going to be. Williams, the quarterback, pretty good. They've got Michigan on there. Mayava, the quarterback. And, you need to see things start playing out before you start figuring out, before making assumptions, who's actually good and who's not.
Hey, Steve. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I got some guy named Doug Birdsong on the phone.
Douglas?
That you might want to talk to about Patriot League tournament basketball.
No, tell Doug to leave.
Well, let me guess. The suit didn't tell you about this segment, did he?
Actually, he did.
Oh,
actually,
we had this all set up to throw him under the bus, Steve.
I understand that, but he wakes up every day, and the process of throwing himself under the bus happens on an hourly basis.
So he doesn't need any help.
He doesn't need any help whatsoever. The Patriot tournament, is it Army again?
It is, yes. Less than a week since these two teams matched up at West Point.
Yeah. I listened to the game because and your post-game show cut off 2/3 of my show. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I apologize.
I'm kidding. I don't. What do I care? I don't care. But they won the game. They've also had a lot of close games this year, and that ended up being a close game. What was different this time?
I think the biggest thing is they held Ryan Curry, who is a third-team All-Patriot League pick, to 1 of 12 shooting from the floor. He had a couple of free throws as well, but he only ended up with 5 points. That's huge because he had 15 last time those two teams met at Soika, where an Army won in overtime on a last-second three-pointer, not by Curry, but still. I think that, and also they also held the really good freshman guard, Jackson Furman, to just 4 points in that game this past Wednesday. So while they did have a couple of guys reach career highs or close to it, in Kevin McCarthy and Tate Latchkowski, who actually did get a career high in that game, I think that was probably the biggest thing, Steve. I think Coach Griffin and his staff would prefer those two guys getting some shots and maybe even getting some points as opposed to Curry, Furman, Bell, Holloway, some of the guys who have, throughout the course of the year, really helped to carry this Black Knights team.
What has made a difference I mean, look, there have been injuries along the way, but what's made a difference in some better play down the stretch for Bucknell?
Well, certainly the last two games, even though this last game Saturday at Lehigh was a loss, Bucknell shooting the ball much better. The last couple of games, the Bison have hit 9 3-pointers, taken a few 3-pointers than normal, but not necessarily too many. But I think it's the shooting. Both were right around 50% for the game. This Bucknell team with so many injuries, 2 starters who haven't played hardly any at all this year, certainly none in the Patriot League, really, and then 2 other key reserves that also had not been on the floor. I think the shooting, some of those guys that would have been playing, if not for the injuries, would have contributed to some better shooting. This group seems to be starting to shoot better, have kind of changed some things defensively as well, just because of lack of numbers, trying to play a lot more 1-3-1 zone, and that really caused Army, and at times even Lehigh, some consternation. So we'll see. Army obviously had an opportunity to see it a lot last Wednesday over in West Point, so we'll see how they attack it this time.
All right. John's style of play, has he had to adapt that style of play because of the injuries this year?
Oh, most definitely. That's a great question, Steve, because he really, in the first probably 10 games of the year, not all, of course, non-league games, they pretty much did a lot of full-court pressure. They had bodies to just throw in different circumstances, played some 1-3-1 every now and then, played a lot of matchup, but played primarily man-to-man because, again, they had that depth. But once they lost Rubigiak, then they lost Josh Fulton, then they lost Brandon McCreesh, and most recently lost Geragor Burchich. Those guys just has really affected the rotation and what Coach Griffin wanted to do. So now instead of, they'll take their opportunities to push the ball up the floor, but without so many bodies, they haven't necessarily pressed full court. Every now and then they'll just kind of throw it out there, but it's not necessarily to trap as much as it is just to kind of slows the pace down for the other team a little bit, getting into the half court and their half court. So I think it really has changed a lot, and he's had to change, which to me that's the sign of a good coaching staff and a good sign for the players to be able to kind of adapt on the run.
All right. Navy's at the top of the league, and I saw them earlier in the year. Ed DeChellis did something I thought was incredibly unselfish. He knew he had his all 5 starters back, and he had his 6th man back. And he said, you know what, this is the right time to step aside and let John Perry take over. You saw them twice. What kind of job has John done with that group?
An incredible job. And I didn't get a chance really to speak with him at Annapolis, but I was talking with Justin Kashevsky, who's the basketball contact, who you may have dealt with when they played at the Bryce Jordan Center against Penn State earlier this year. I was talking with him, and I said, hey, I would love to meet Coach Perry because I had read in his bio. I hadn't really looked at his bio much because he was the associate head coach,
sure,
but then assistant coach. But once he became the head coach, I really kind of delved into it. Well, he grew up in Milton, West Virginia, which is literally just about 20 minutes to the east of Huntington, where I grew up. And he ended up going to Milton High School. I went to Huntington East High School. They played against one another. Although he's much younger than me, but most people are. But I got a chance when they played at Soika here a few weeks ago to be able to talk with him before the game. He is such a great, great person. I found out that his dad, Don Berry, had actually worked with Marshall when I was a student at Marshall with their basketball team in particular on a nationally renowned program that got attention from NBC. And you'll remember here, Steve, back in the early 80s, you really only had one national game on a Saturday. NBC had the national game for college, and then you would have a regional game or a flip. You may have a regional game at, say, noon or 1, and then a national game after that. So the Atlantic 10 or the Atlantic 8 at the time, the Southern Conference, which Marshall was a member of, they were on. And so NBC did a national piece on this program that John's dad helped to put forth with Marshall basketball and that team that year. And it was well respected, although I don't think that Al McGuire, who was the number one analyst for NBC at the time, cared much for it. But it just goes to show that the Perry family, John, his dad, the whole family, they're really quality people, and he has done a terrific job. And those veterans, those guys, as you would expect, they don't get blustered at all. They just, if or flustered at all, if a team has a lead on them, or if they are holding a lead, they're pretty much stay the same. They have so many seniors, and then the others who play a lot are juniors, and they just know how to kind of compete. And that's kind of a lost art nowadays in college basketball because, as you know, particularly with Penn State, young teams, there are a lot of young teams, or even now teams that kind of have so many transfers that they're not necessarily veteran teams working with one another for 2, 3, 4 years like this Navy team. So if Bucknell were to win here tonight, Bison would have to travel to Annapolis tomorrow and then play Thursday against the number 1 seeded midshipmen.
Right. There is one team that can wreck the Miami of Ohio story, and that is Akron. They only played once, and Miami of Ohio won by 3. You saw Akron in person. They played Bucknell. Why are they good?
Well, let's go back to what we just said about blending a lot of different new faces to a existing structure, if you will. So Coach Gross has done a terrific job, and they have some NIL money to be able to work with in regards to this, but they did a terrific job bringing in the right pieces to fit the guys that they were able to offer money to keep at Akron this year. Before Bucknell played Akron, I sat down and talked with Coach Gross's associate head coach, Dustin Ford. I actually called Dustin's games in high school, and so had probably 30 minutes that Dustin and I were just talking, and I asked him, how are you guys doing it? And that's what he told me. He said, we've been fortunate. They have one big donor who has really contributed a lot to their NIL, and then some others, and they have as much NIL pretty much as the top tier of the Mid-American Conference teams, Miami included, and they have just pieced together the right people. They have length all over the floor. They have quickness. They have athletes. They have shooters. I mean, they really have I think they're a better team than Miami. Even at that time, Miami, when Bucknell played Akron, the Red Hawks were probably 11 or 12-0, 13-0 at that point, so they were still undefeated. And I'd said, Miami looks pretty good. And Dustin said, oh, yeah, no, they're going to be tough. But I just think deep down Akron has a better team, and I know Miami lost their point guard, and their backup point guard's doing a good job, but their games have really been close, particularly lately. I wouldn't be surprised if those two teams make it to the championship at the formerly known as Gund Arena in Cleveland. I wouldn't be surprised if Akron doesn't win. They'll both have a huge amount of fan support for that one. But it'll be interesting. I mean, as you well know, the Mid-American Conference is always just a really tough conference. And it's amazing that Miami has been able to make it through unscathed right now. But again, they've had some really close wins, including that one at Central Michigan last week.
Yeah. So Bucknell wins tonight if
Bucknell can hit some shots from the outside at home. While Bucknell has shot the ball very well on the road the last 2 games, at West Point last Wednesday and at Stabler Arena at Lehigh on Saturday, Bucknell over the last 4 games has connected on literally 17% of the three-pointers that the Bison have put up. If Bucknell can hit somewhere closer to the average, even 33 to 35%, or even above that, which Bucknell has the last 2 games, I think that would bode well. Conversely, also has got to be able to watch out for Curry, and when he's been coming off the bench here lately, Furman, the freshman, and then you just can't let the physical play of Army dictate what you're going to do. Hopefully the 1-3-1 and maybe changing some defenses will confuse Army again. They're kind of a young team, just like Bucknell in certain aspects. I mean, the Bison start a sophomore and 2 freshmen, so kind of young on young. But I think if those things happen in favor of the Bison, Bucknell will play Navy on Thursday at Alumni Hall.
So is it true that they would sacrifice a ticket if the suit didn't buy one?
If the suit wants to get in, we will open up let's just say we'll get the loading dock garage door open so he can kind of squeeze his way in.
You need the loading dock door to squeeze them in?
Okay, all right. That's being a little facetious. Okay, we'll just bring a regular door. We'll get him in that way.
Well, no, you may have be onto something here with the loading dock. Oh, goodness gracious. How did you survive all those years with him falling off chairs?
Hey, I've said it to him many a time. I'll say it to you and to anyone who's listening. Those are some of the most fun road trips when Kevin was with us. And unfortunately, the last couple of years, he hadn't been able to go on the road with us. But those are so much fun. And obviously, the games themselves can be a little entertaining, particularly at Cornell when they have a chair that I think that they purposefully made just to fall apart so that we would have something to speak about during the broadcast. But other than that, Steve, those are fun trips. Kevin is a load of laughs. And
he's a what? Kevin's a what? Kevin's a what?
I won't say anymore. Okay, that's enough.
Hey, Doug.
Yes, Rob.
I mean, so far, the word loading dock doors, things like that. That's not good. That's not good. My goodness.
That is a very good point. Yes, no, it's very true.
You act like I don't listen during these interviews. I hear every word.
Well, sometimes I wonder, maybe, you interview so many people, it just goes in one ear out the other, right?
Well, on Mondays and Fridays it does. All right, so...
That's a load.
When I'm working with Rob, for example, I feel good.
Exactly. Yes.
Hey, great broadcast, but you sound better than ever, pal. Just want to let you know that. So great broadcast, great broadcast tonight.
Well, thank you very much. It's great hearing from you. I appreciate you having me on here, even if Kevin didn't tell you that I was going to be on. But no, you said he did. Okay, so we won't throw him under the bus for that. But I appreciate it, and hopefully the Bison can pull up the W this evening.
Let's see. And then they got Navy next with a win. All right? So, hey.
That would be terrific.
1 at a time. Thanks, Doug.
Hey, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Rob, too, and the suit as well.
That last part just didn't feel right.